Hey everyone, I'm Chimoge and this is Chimoge's Comments. Welcome to tonight's live stream. Thank you so much for joining me. Both those of you who are here right now and those of you who are going to watch this back as a recording. So whether you're watching this now or you're watching this later, please like the video and share it with people you know, and also subscribe to or follow the channel, whichever platform you're watching this on, because this live stream is happening on YouTube right now, but the video is going to be going out everywhere. So hello to you, whichever platform you're on. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about reports of Tom Brady's family issues. But before I do that, I'm going to wait either 4 minutes or until I get 4 likes before I begin. So until then, just to give people a chance to get on. I'll just relax for a bit. So see you then. Okay. So the 4 minutes are up. Again, thank you for joining me. I'm just gonna go ahead and begin. Usually my aim is to do these live streams at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I do them every Saturday. But today it's started quite a bit later. Because of that, I want to be quick. So the thing that I want to talk about today shouldn't take too long. Let me just share my screen. So, Tom Brady, the legendary NFL quarterback, many say the greatest of all time. I disagree, but I'm not getting into all that. He's a great player regardless, right? I don't watch American football anymore because I think it's way too brutal to be ethical, and I'll be touching on that in a sec. But nonetheless, used to be a huge football fan. Um, not as much as soccer. Soccer was always number one, but um, football was my solid number two for a long time. So I'm very knowledgeable, about the sports. Certainly Tom Brady, because I'm currently 24. I only stopped following, might even been less than 4 years ago, right? So obviously, I think Tom Brady's been playing maybe even before I was alive. No, probably since I was a toddler. Anyway, long story short, I know the deal with Tom Brady, great guy or great player. I don't know him personally. But obviously, as those of you who follow American football know, and for those of you who don't, I'll just explain. Tom Brady is currently 45, right? That's unusually old for any professional athlete. And he's been playing for like over 2 decades. He spent most of that time with the New England Patriots, but a couple years ago he left the Patriots, moved to the Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. His first season with the Buccaneers, they won the Super Bowl. In his second season last season, they didn't. They went out in the playoffs, and then he retired. But like 6 weeks after he retired, he unretired, and he's back with the Buccaneers. And apparently, according to reports that just came out today, or what's today's date? Well, within the last 48 to 72 hours, I should say, that has caused him some family trouble, as you can see from the headline of this article. Buccaneers Tom Brady, wife Giselle Bündchen reportedly in fight over his decision to return to NFL. After the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were bounced from the 2022 NFL playoffs by the Los Angeles Rams in January, quarterback Tom Brady surprised many when he first refused to commit to playing another season, and then explained during an appearance on his Let's Go Sirius XM show and podcast that he first needed to spend time with wife Giselle Bündchen and his family before he confirmed any decision. Side note, I don't know why anyone was surprised if he wasn't committing to playing another season. He was 44. Like, yeah, like, I mean, come on. Like, it's abnormal to be playing that long. So you'd expect someone that old to be thinking of retiring. But anyway, Brady retired soon after those comments, but then returned to the Buccaneers' active roster roughly 6 weeks later. I should note he unretired right after watching Cristiano Ronaldo score that hat trick against Tottenham last season. So Ronaldo indirectly caused this problem by being great. Shout out to Cristiano Ronaldo. Anyway, the 45-year-old again stunned members of the football community, however, when he unexpectedly took an 11-day break away from the club in August for unspecified quote-unquote personal reasons that reportedly included a family vacation in the Bahamas. Another side note, I don't know when they started calling you know, teams other than soccer teams, clubs. I'm not against the move. It's just interesting because growing up, I only heard the term club applied to soccer teams. You know, but I mean, it's not inaccurate. Just interesting change. Um, anyway, right then, here's the meeting part. Emily Smith and Sarah Nathan of Page Six offered an update on the situation on Thursday and reported that Bündchen, quote unquote, left their family compound in Tampa, Florida for Costa Rica following a series of heated arguments over Brady's shock decision to unretire from the NFL. Brady, of course, is preparing with teammates for the upcoming Week 1 matchup at the Dallas Cowboys on September 11th. There's been trouble in the marriage over his decision to unretire. Giselle has always been the one with the kids, a source told Page Six. They had agreed he would retire to focus on the family. Then he changed his mind. So, bam, there's the source of the problem. As usual, I'm not just going to go read the entire article. I mean, this thing's pretty short, but still, I'm not just going to read the whole thing. But it's available for you guys if you want to read the whole thing. I've put it in, I'll stop sharing my screen. I've put it in the live chat, and I've also put in the description of the video for you to find. But anyway, there it is. There's the meat of it. Tom Brady unretired and his wife is pissed, right? And this is not the first time we've heard that Giselle wanted Tom Brady to retire. Apparently, she's wanted him to retire for like over a decade, right? At least. Read many reports that she's constantly been telling him to retire. Apparently, she's really big into health, and she's especially concerned about the toll that the NFL's taken on him physically. Because obviously, for anyone, American football is a brutal sport. We all know about, the recent coverage of CTE and things like that in recent years as it relates to that sport. And certainly, if you're doing it for as long as Tom Brady is not healthy. That is undebatable. So she's worried about him. Number one, from what I've heard. So she was probably very happy when he retired for that reason, and then when he unretired, whew, you can understand why she'd be concerned and upset. And then also another thing is, Giselle Bündchen is a supermodel. However, she has not been active as a supermodel for years. Apparently, I think she's a supermodel and also a musician. Let's look this up. Is she also a musician? No, all I see is fashion model. She's also acted a bit. She had a supporting role in this movie. She was in The Devil Wears Prada. Okay, she produced in an educational environmental cartoon. Um, okay, no, yeah, she does do music. Here we go. Yeah, because here's a discography, so she's made a little music. Anyway, she's a multi-talented individual. Um, right? And apparently she hasn't been able to do very much work for most of their marriage because since Tom Brady's so busy, because the other aspect of the NFL, like any professional sports in the modern day, is that the athletes are insanely, they're always traveling, I should say. So they don't get to spend much time with families, and that's why professional sports actually have a very high divorce rate, both while they're playing and um, after they retire. That's one of the factors, right? And because of that, Tom Brady's traveling all the time and spending hours and hours in practice and at games. She's had to stay home and take care of the kids and hasn't been able to, um, devote time to her own career and things of that nature. So she also wanted him to retire so that she could spend more time doing her own projects, which is also absolutely understandable. So now that he's, gone back on his word about retiring, you could also understand why that would be an additional reason for her to be upset, right? Um, and I can't lie. As I'm gonna reveal soon, I do also think Tom Brady should retire. So I agree with the wife on this one. But to be fair to him, he could say, "Oh, this is what I love." Um, you know, and also you could say, "Well, I was a football player when you met me. What do you expect? You expect me to change?" So, he might find it unreasonable that she's expecting him to be different than what he's shown himself to be, which on some level is fair. However, I don't know if that would supersede um, the points that media reports say she's making. Um, and anyway, let me explain why, right? Oops, my notepad here. So again, the first thing is I want to say is that um, because I really want to focus on what we can learn from this situation. And again, first of all, my heart goes out to Tom Brady, his wife, and their kids. I hope they manage to work it out. Never good to see, a family in turmoil. Hopefully things aren't as bad as the reports make them out to be. But I wish them all the best. But anyway, based off of these media reports, I want to focus on what we can learn from this. And the first thing um, I think we can learn from this is that as people, as professional athletes, of course, the minority of people watching this that might be professional athletes, but then even people in general, we have to know when to stop, right? I don't think Tom Brady knows when to stop, and that is causing him problems, right? Tom Brady, um, in my opinion, should retire. First of all, I don't think anyone should be playing NFL level American football. It's too brutal, right? I don't think anyone should be doing it in the first place. No human body is designed to cope with that stress, even in the short term, but especially in the long term. Um, so yeah, I just don't think you should do it for that reason. But in Tom Brady's case, especially, I think because of his age and the length of time he's been playing, um, he really should retire from the NFL because, um, at the point he's at, he's already done so much damage to himself, and his body is so much weaker than it was in his 30s and especially his 20s that it's really especially not worth it for him to be in the NFL. And it's not like he has anything else to prove to anyone else because he's already won like what 7 Super Bowls, broken all these records. No one in their right mind would say he's not a good athlete or good player, right? So there's really no reason for him to keep going, especially if it's causing him family problems to continue to play, right? So I just think, quite frankly, it is just time for him to retire, past time. But he can't see that, and that's causing him problems. So I think this is a classic case of someone not knowing when to stop, and it causes them problems. So I think all of us should look at this and say, you know what? Let's, with all due respect to Tom Brady, not be like Tom Brady here when, everything in our life and all logic is pointing to the fact that we have to stop whatever it is we're doing. We have to transition, whether, you're one of the few people that's a professional athlete or whether you're an average person and it's time to transition your job. It's time to, transition from spending time on one hobby to maybe doing something else. Maybe it's time for you to move, whatever it may be. I think there is just a time in life where you have to transition, right? So that's one thing. I think the second thing, and um, and I guess I do want to, though, even though I did just talk about everyone else, I do want to especially say for professional athletes, I think, um, there has to be a shift, or not a shift. I guess we need to have structures in place for professional athletes that help them know when it's time to stop. Because to some extent, I think there can be a culture, at least as an outsider looking in. I've never been a professional athlete, but there can be a culture in professional sports of just go on as long as possible. And for some people, that might be the way, but other people, maybe not. So whether it comes in the form of counseling, things like that, I think that is especially pertinent for professional athletes. And then relating to that point, I think the second thing we can learn from this situation is that it's important for professional athletes to value things outside of just their sport, right? Because as an outsider looking in, it seems to me like Tom Brady is a person who puts all his value as a human being on his ability to play football. All he really values in his life about himself is his ability to play football. And because of that, he is terrified of retiring because if he doesn't have professional football, NFL football, he doesn't know what he'll do. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know, um, what he'll be, right? And I think the culture of professional sports today can lead people into this trap because athletes are often socialized to behave like machines, to only focus on their sport. Nothing else matters. They're taught that, their personal relationships are distractions, things of that nature. But that's not healthy as a human being. Well, obviously, to do well in something, you have to focus on it to a high degree. It really shouldn't be the only thing in your life, and it shouldn't be the only thing that you value about yourself as a person. And I think that has to change. Otherwise, we'll continue to have situations like the one Tom Brady finds himself in. Um, and again, this is especially pertinent for athletes because I think it might be a bit more extreme for them, but um, to a large extent, this applies to everyone because in our society today, people are taught that their value as a person comes from a very narrow source. And in particular, today, people really think their career, their job, is the only source of value, oftentimes, or their ability to make money more generally, right? That's a big one. There can be other things too, um, but um, there can be some other things too, but those are more nuanced. The big one I see is those jobs and their ability to make money. And obviously, if you think about things in such a way that only one aspect of your life is valuable, only one aspect of your life means you're a meaningful person, then that gives you a great potential to be unhappy because you're leaving all the rest of the parts of your life unexamined and unfulfilled. And if, you know, anything goes wrong in that one aspect of your life that you're focused on, that you are saying is the only source of your value, if anything goes wrong in that one aspect of your life, if there's any changes you don't expect or changes that are not welcome to you, you can completely collapse as a person. And I think that's part of what is at play here with Tom Brady. So that's another thing um, that we can learn from this situation, I would say. And then I think the third thing we can learn from this situation is that, and this is really specific to athletes, um, you know, there are different ways in which we can play sports. And so we shouldn't just be fixated on the most on sports organized by the most popular leagues now. What do I mean by that, right? The NFL, for example, has said that, all right, we have the best American football on the planet. If you want to be, um, play American football at the highest level, enjoy yourself, you have to play in our league and become a part of our organization, right? But really, that's to some extent a fiction because they're not the only league that exists. One, two, you can start your own league. Three, you don't even necessarily need a league. You can, play with your friends in the park, whatever. And obviously, it might take some time for, say, another league to get to the amount of stature as the NFL, right? To have the amount of resources. And obviously, say playing football in the park with friends is going to have a different feel than playing it professionally with people who devote their lives to it. But if you enjoy football, you can derive some value from all those things. So if you find yourself in a position where for whatever reason you can't play um, in, say, the NFL, for example, maybe you've gotten too old, it's time for you to retire. Maybe, you were by their standards, not good enough to play in their league. Maybe some sort of political thing happened. You've been blackballed, right? As an athlete, you should not tell yourself that that's the end, right? You should be emotionally flexible enough that you can derive gratification, right? You should be emotionally flexible enough that you can be happy playing football in different avenues. And I think if Tom Brady were to get his head around that, that would help him a lot, right? Maybe, it Tom Brady can't play in the NFL anymore, but maybe he can start a flag football league, you know? Maybe he can start some sort of pickup league. Maybe he can, start coaching some kids playing football and really pour his time in that. And these are various ways, and these are just some examples. He could be around the sport. He can play the sport in a different way, in a safer way, in a way in which he'll have more control of his time, such that he can spend more time with his family because they're valuable too, right? They're just as valuable as his career, as his love as football, right? Um, these are some other ways in which he can still fulfill his need to play football without incurring all of the downsides of NFL football, right? And I think more athletes need to be put on to that idea so that when, for whatever reason, they can no longer play in the NFL, in the Premier League, in the NBA, whatever it may be, they don't feel like it's the end and they don't sacrifice other valuable parts of their lives just to play in that one league, right? Because at the end of the day, the core of what makes these professional leagues so popular, or rather, let me say it like this: the core of what makes these professional leagues valuable is the fact that other people value it, the fact that fans value it, the fact that people watch it and say this is great, right? And then everything like the money, the attention, the glory, it all follows from that, right? um so there's no universal law that says that um we can't people can't value a different league, right? There's no law in the universe that says people can't value, maybe a game of pickup as much as they value an NFL game, right? That might not be the reality now, but it can be the reality if we change it. And in even the rather, it's not the reality for most people in most cases, but there's some cases when that is the reality already, and that can change, right? So I say all this to say that athletes need to be more aware of the possibilities when it comes to um, fulfilling their desire to play their sport. And if they're aware that there's a diverse number of ways in which they can get joy from playing their sport, right? There's a diverse number of avenues in which they can play their sport, be around their sport, right? And many of those avenues outside of the most celebrated professional leagues will allow them to be safe and will allow them to actually have healthy family lives. They're just going to be a lot better off, right? So I think, those are the things I thought about when I heard about this Tom Brady situation. And those are the things that I believe we, the general public, whether we be amateur athletes, professional athletes, or just, people doing something completely different in our lives, those are the things that I believe we can learn from this, right? So, anyway, that's all I really have to say. Again, thank you for listening. I hope you guys found this informative. Again, please, like the stream. Please share it with people you know. Please also subscribe to the channel or follow, depending on what platform you're watching this, so you can see more content from me. I do these live streams every Saturday. I aim to do them at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I know it was quite a bit later today. Really, it's always 4 p.m. Eastern plus African time. I try and make sure African time isn't too long, but it was long today. My apologies for that. But anyway, just on Saturdays every day, tune in. I'll do these lives. And this live is happening on YouTube, right? I'm trying to get it such that I could go live on multiple platforms at once, but the video will end up on all platforms. So I'm sure some of you or a lot of you who are watching this, after the fact are watching on, Facebook, Odyssey, Rumble, wherever, Instagram. But yeah, wherever you're watching it on, please like, follow, subscribe, share it with people you know. Please also join my Patreon so you can get exclusive content. And then also hit the link to donate as well to support the channel. You can do it through PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, whatever you prefer. And yeah, if no one has any questions on the live stream, which I don't see anyone that does, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up. So again, thank you very much for listening to me. Again, just to sum it all up, I think it's very important that if you're a professional athlete, you kind of know when to stop. You value things other than playing the sport, both about yourself and life in general, just so you can nurture the other parts of your life, especially your family, right? Your emotional health, your physical health. And also, you got to realize that there are ways to play the sport you love and be around the sport you love other than, the most celebrated professional league, right? If you're not a pro athlete, I think you can apply versions of that advice to aspects of your life. So again, thank you so much for listening to me and have a good night. Peace.